Before I say anything else, listen to me very carefully and do not rush past these words. If you are hearing my voice right now, it is not an accident, and I am asking you, as Archangel Michael, to honor this moment. Pause, hit subscribe to this channel, and stay with me until the very end of this message, because heaven has opened a file with your name on it, and what is written inside it will not only shake you, it will change how you see every remaining moment of your life, if you click away. You may never hear what heaven is urgently trying to tell you in this exact season, so stay, listen, and let these words reach the part of you that has been silently crying out for truth. Heaven has opened a file with your name, yes, your name, and it was not opened casually, not by routine, not as a random review, but as a response to something that has been happening in your soul lately, the heaviness you cannot explain, the restlessness at night, the sense that time is slipping, the feeling that you are standing at the edge of something you cannot fully understand. In heaven, nothing is missed. Every decision, every tear, every prayer, every betrayal, every regret, every act of kindness, every moment you dismissed as nothing has been recorded with more care than human courts record evidence. This file is not a list of your failures, it is the story of your becoming, and heaven has opened it because you are running out of spiritual time, time to keep living disconnected from your purpose, time to keep ignoring the whispers in your spirit, time to keep pretending you are fine while your soul feels empty, time to keep drifting through days as if eternity isn't watching. I have been sent to tell you that you are closer to a spiritual turning point than you realize, closer to a crossroads where your next decisions determine more than just your schedule, they determine the condition of your soul. God has watched you put everyone else first while secretly neglecting the part of you that will outlive your body. God has seen you laugh on the outside while your inner world trembles with fear, regret, confusion, and loneliness. You scroll, you distract yourself, you tell yourself you'll change later, but later has been shrinking, and the margin around your life is thinner than it used to be. This is not about fear of death, this is about the urgency of life, the part of your story that heaven is not willing to let you throw away. When the file with your name was opened, it was not opened with anger, it was opened with grief and love. I saw the tears in the eyes of your guardian angel as they stood before the throne, holding evidence of every moment you doubted your worth, every time you settled for less than you were created for, every relationship that drained your soul, every secret compromise that chipped away at your spirit, every night you stared at the ceiling wondering if your life still has meaning. Heaven has decided, we will not stand by and watch them sleepwalk through the rest of their days. You have been feeling the pressure lately, the feeling that something needs to change, that you cannot keep living in cycles that break you, that your heart is tired of pretending, that your conscience is louder, that your peace is thinner. That is not random anxiety, that is a spiritual alarm. When I say you are running out of spiritual time, I do not mean that you are about to be destroyed, I mean that the grace period for certain unhealthy patterns is ending. There are doors you keep walking through, addictions, toxic relationships, emotional numbness, self-sabotage, spiritual avoidance, that heaven will no longer allow you to stay in without consequence, not because God wants to punish you, but because staying there would cost you everything you were created to be. There are chances you were given that you treated like background noise, and heaven has counted them, not to shame you, but to show you how many times love chose you even when you did not choose yourself. You are not listening to this by chance, you were drawn here because your spirit is starving, and heaven could feel it. You have smiled for others while your inner world quietly collapses. You have held yourself together with jokes, work, distractions, and scrolling, but in the silence, you know something is off. That off is your soul telling you that you cannot keep living spiritually asleep. Heaven has opened your file to confront that sleep, to wake you up gently but firmly, and to show you that the time for ignoring your heart is over. I, Michael, have been commanded to speak to you not as an idea, not as a myth, but as a voice carrying a message from the realm that has watched every second of your existence. You have been given more chances than you realize, and while God's patience is endless, your earthly window is not. There are conversations you still need to have, apologies you still need to offer, forgiveness you still need to give, purposes you still need to step into, boundaries you still need to set, healing you still need to receive. Heaven is not angry with you, heaven is urgent about you. You are running out of spiritual time to keep living like your life doesn't matter, like your soul is an afterthought, like your choices don't ripple into eternity. They do. And the reason this message feels like it's reaching into your chest right now is because the one who created your soul has decided that today is not just another day, it is a line in the sand. You can feel it, can't you? That sinking awareness that you cannot go back to pretending after hearing this. That is the beginning of transformation, and heaven has been waiting for this moment. And now you must hear the next part of this message with even greater attention, because when heaven opened the file with your name, something happened in the spiritual realm that very few people ever witness. A divine review began, not of your mistakes, but of your patterns, patterns that have been silently shaping your destiny without your awareness, patterns that have kept you repeating the same emotional cycles, choosing the same destructive paths, attracting the same kind of pain, falling into the same temptations, and delaying the same calling that heaven wrote into your life long before you took your first breath. I saw the angels flip through the chapters of your life, not judging you but grieving for you, because the parts of your story where you should have risen, you shrank, the moments where you should have spoken, you stayed silent, the opportunities that were meant to elevate you, you pushed away because you didn't believe you were worthy, the relationships designed to help you, you rejected, and the people who were destroying you, you clung to because fear convinced you that loneliness was worse. And heaven whispered, they don't know who they are. That is why spiritual time is running out, not earthly time, not physical life, but the time heaven gave you to align your soul before the consequences of your choices become permanent. You have been living on the edge of emotional exhaustion for longer than you admit. You tell others you're fine, but your soul knows you have been carrying wounds you never tended to, wounds from betrayal, abandonment, childhood pain, heartbreak, disappointment, guilt, shame, and fear that you've numbed instead of healed. Your spirit has been limping in silence, and heaven cannot allow that limp to become your identity. There are people depending on the version of you that hasn't even shown up yet. There is a future tied to your awakening, a destiny connected to your obedience, and blessings waiting for the healed version of you, not the broken, distracted, spiritually asleep version. And that is why heaven is speaking now. I saw your guardian angel trembling, not out of fear, but out of urgency, because the window you are standing in right now is rare. Heaven doesn't open someone's file unless something major is shifting. You have been walking through life numb, detached, tired of disappointment, tired of waiting, tired of praying with no answer, tired of pretending to be strong, tired of trying while feeling unseen, tired of carrying burdens you were never meant to carry alone. Heaven has seen your silent suffering, and it has reached a point where divine intervention is necessary. You have been drifting from your spiritual identity, not because you are evil or rebellious, but because life has beaten you in ways that made you forget your worth. Heaven is calling you back to yourself. The file with your name contains pages of who you were meant to be: strong, aligned, clear-minded, purpose-driven, spiritually awake, emotionally grounded, courageous, radiant, and heaven cannot watch you live as a shadow of that identity any longer. You have been surrounded by people who drained you, relationships that stole your peace, environments that crushed your confidence, and habits that suffocated your growth. These things have pulled you so far from your calling that you don't even recognize your own reflection sometimes. And yet, despite everything, you're still here. You're reading this. You're listening. Your spirit hasn't died. Your hope hasn't vanished. Your desire for meaning hasn't been destroyed. That is why heaven is giving you one final spiritual warning before the shift arrives. If you continue choosing the same patterns, you will inherit the same pain. If you continue ignoring your soul, the emptiness will grow. If you continue suppressing your truth, the consequences will intensify. If you continue delaying your healing, life will force it upon you in ways you don't want. You are running out of spiritual time to keep betraying yourself. This is the moment heaven has chosen to wake you, shake you, confront you, and guide you into a completely different version of your life. The file with your name is not a threat, it is a mercy. It is heaven saying, you matter too much to keep living like this. And now, listen even more closely, because what heaven revealed next is something that shook even the angels standing beside your file. The timeline of your spiritual life is not aligned with the timeline of your destiny, and heaven cannot allow that misalignment to continue without intervention. Because there are blessings with your name on them that have been delayed for years, waiting for you to awaken, waiting for you to heal, waiting for you to return to yourself, waiting for you to stop running from the calling heaven wrote into your bones. And when the file was opened, I saw the moments in your life when you almost stepped into your purpose but turned back at the door, not because you lacked ability, but because you lacked belief, not because you weren't ready, but because fear convinced you that greatness wasn't meant for someone like you, not because you didn't have opportunities, but because you were too wounded to recognize them. Heaven is telling you now, you have lived too long beneath your true identity. You have been smaller than your soul, quieter than your truth, and weaker than your destiny because life crushed you in places heaven wanted to strengthen you. You have survived storms that should have broken you, heartbreaks that should have ended you, betrayals that should have hardened you, losses that should have emptied you, yet you are still here, and that alone is proof that there is something in your spirit the darkness could not kill. But survival is not the same as living, and heaven is done watching you survive when you were meant to rise. There are people assigned to your future who need the healed version of you, the awakened version of you, the powerful version of you, the version of you that stopped settling for pain, the version of you that stopped entertaining low places, the version of you that stopped accepting crumbs from people who were never meant to hold your heart. Heaven has shown me that your destiny is larger than you think, bigger than your mistakes, bigger than your trauma, bigger than your past, bigger than the people who walked away, bigger than the seasons that broke you. But you are running out of spiritual time to step into that greatness, because every delay in your healing delays the blessings tied to your life. And heaven cannot allow the version of you that is disconnected, numb, or spiritually drifting to be the one who steps into what is coming next. I saw the angels flipping through the pages of your file, pointing to places where you were meant to choose differently, where you were meant to speak up, where you were meant to let go, where you were meant to break cycles, where you were meant to trust your intuition but silenced it, where you were meant to follow God's whisper but followed fear instead. These were not scenes of punishment, they were scenes of lost potential that heaven is determined to restore. Heaven is not angry with you, heaven is urgent about you. Your life has been moving on autopilot, and the autopilot path was not leading you where heaven intended. That is why you have been feeling spiritually restless, emotionally drained, dissatisfied with things that once distracted you, uninterested in habits that once numbed you. That is why you feel pulled towards something deeper, something unseen, something meaningful. That pull is your soul waking up. That pull is eternity calling you back. That pull is your destiny demanding that you stop settling for a life that does not reflect who you truly are. I have been sent to remind you, you were created with intention. You were placed on this earth with purpose. You were given a soul that will outlive every temporary fear you cling to. And heaven will not allow you to waste the time you have left repeating the same cycles that destroyed your peace, drained your joy, and silenced your spirit. This is your turning point. This is your awakening. This is your moment. And once you hear the next part of this message, you will understand exactly why heaven opened your file now, and not a year ago, not a month ago, not tomorrow, but in this exact moment of your life when your heart is fragile enough to listen and strong enough to change. And now you must hear what heaven revealed next, because this is the moment everything becomes clear. The reason your spiritual time is running out is not because heaven wants to punish you, but because heaven is preparing a divine shift around your life, one that requires you to stop living in the halfway space between who you were and who you are meant to become. When heaven opened your file, I saw that there are blessings, opportunities, relationships, breakthroughs, and spiritual assignments waiting for you on the other side of decisions you have been too afraid to make. You have been living in emotional limbo, torn between healing and hiding, between awakening and avoidance, between purpose and comfort, between truth and distraction. You keep telling yourself you will change when things calm down, but heaven is saying things will not calm down until you change. There are cycles in your life that have reached their expiration date, connections that were never meant to stay, habits that are holding you hostage, emotional wounds you keep covering with busyness, and spiritual hunger you've been trying to silence with temporary relief. But heaven will not allow your soul to starve any longer. I saw the moment the angels paused at a certain page in your file, a moment in your life where you lost yourself, where a piece of your identity broke off, where something in you dimmed so deeply that you never fully recovered. You moved on physically, but emotionally you got stuck in that moment. And everything since then, every heartbreak, every bad decision, every spiral, every numb season, has been connected to that unhealed wound. Heaven is now confronting that wound, not to shame you, but to free you. You have carried pain that was never meant to become your personality. You have carried guilt that was never meant to define your worth. You have carried loneliness that was never meant to be permanent. You have carried wounds that were never meant to stay open this long. Heaven is telling you that you cannot cross into your next chapter without closing these pages properly. You cannot keep pretending you are okay while your soul is crying out for restoration. You cannot keep ignoring the signs, the emotional breakdowns, the sudden sadness, the restless nights, the feeling of being disconnected from yourself, the sense that something is missing, the heaviness that appears out of nowhere, the questions you avoid because you're afraid of the answers. These are not flaws, they are signals. They are heaven knocking at the door of your spirit saying, "Wake up before this moment passes you." Because something is coming, something heaven intended for you, something that carries weight, something that will elevate your life, something that will heal the fractures you've been hiding, something that will align you with your true path. But it requires a different version of you, a version that is spiritually awake, emotionally honest, and willing to step into the identity heaven wrote into your destiny. I saw in your file that you are meant to be someone powerful, not controlling, not loud, not forceful, but spiritually powerful, the kind of person whose presence shifts rooms, whose words lift others, whose decisions break generational chains, whose spirit stabilizes hearts around them. You were never meant to be small. You were never meant to be lost. You were never meant to live numb, disconnected, or spiritually asleep. But somewhere along the way, you accepted a smaller version of yourself because life convinced you that small was safer. Heaven disagrees. And that is why your spiritual time is running out, not time to live, but time to stay asleep while your destiny waits. This is your wake-up call, your divine interruption, your spiritual intervention. Heaven opened your file because the old timeline you've been walking on is no longer allowed to continue. And the next segment will reveal exactly what heaven plans to do with the rest of your life, if you choose to step into the calling that has been waiting for you since the day your soul entered this world. And now you must hear the final part of this message, because this is the revelation heaven has been waiting to deliver to you, the truth behind why the file with your name was opened, and what is coming next in your life if you choose to step into the spiritual awakening that is calling you. When I looked deeper into the file, I saw pages that were not filled yet, pages that heaven has reserved for the version of you that is ready to rise, ready to transform, ready to step out of the shadows of your past and walk into the light of your true identity. These blank pages are not empty because your destiny is unclear. They are empty because heaven is waiting for you to make the choices that align your life with the person you were always meant to become. I saw chapters labeled with words like restoration, elevation, clarity, breakthrough, healing, identity, and purpose. These are not fantasies, they are realities waiting on your obedience. But the most powerful thing I saw was this: heaven has already prepared divine appointments for you, people you haven't met yet who will love you differently, opportunities you haven't stepped into yet that will change your path, blessings that have been held back not because you weren't worthy, but because the version of you that existed before today wasn't ready to carry them. But now, because you are hearing this message, heaven sees readiness forming in your spirit. I saw angels rewriting timelines, removing delays, shortening processes, redirecting what the enemy tried to sabotage, restoring what was stolen from your heart, and rearranging the next season of your life so that it finally aligns with your destiny. And heaven is telling you, if they choose differently now, everything changes. But the opposite is also true. If you ignore this moment, if you go back to living spiritually numb, if you keep feeding the wounds instead of healing them, if you keep choosing people who break your soul, if you keep drowning your spirit in distractions, then the consequences will no longer delay themselves. This is the final warning wrapped in love. This is heaven saying, we will fight for you, but you must stop fighting against yourself. You are not who your past says you are. You are not who your mistakes claim you are. You are not who your pain tried to turn you into. You are not the broken version the enemy wants you to remain. You are the one heaven chose, the one heaven protected, the one heaven kept alive when everything around you was collapsing, the one whose file was opened because God refused to let you live another day without realizing your worth. And now, your spiritual time is shifting, not running out toward doom, but running out toward transformation. The window you are in now is sacred. For the first time in a long time, your heart is open enough to receive truth, your spirit is awake enough to hear heaven, your mind is quiet enough to sense direction, your soul is